like Twilight the movie, like
Oh,
the back.
the back,
And I
but
say
not me though, because I don't look like
no, no, no,
sparkling at
no.
all.
You are not sparkling, no. But I say it's a huge compliment for me, like that it's that like
The
greenish
artistry.
bluish.
We're alive.
Oh, and I
Okay.
did get like a slight some because I burn like so easily, and I was out for like an hour today, and I had sunblock on and everything, but I don't look like this. I swear, like
Oh, I mean,
this is why I was just like I don't understand what's happening, but I can't fix it. I'm
no
sorry.
judgment here.
Yeah. No, you look great.
Good luck.
Exactly.
So are we live?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Everyone,
Okay.
thank you so much for joining us today at this virtual book party to celebrate the release of The Bane Witch. My name is Ariana. I'm the events coordinator here at Love Sweet Arrow, and I have 5 lovely authors with me today. First, of course, we have the amazing Ava Morgan, author of The Bane Witch. If this was in person, there would be applause. Joined with her today, we have authors Lana Harper, author of Rise and Divine, Allie Hazelwood, author of Bride, Sophie Jordan, author of A Fire in the Sky, and last but certainly not least, we have Brian Randall, author of Spells, Strings, and Forgotten Things. Thank you so much, all of you guys, for joining me today. A quick note to the audience members. If you have any questions for any of the authors, please leave them in the YouTube chat, and I will go ahead and make sure those are answered by the authors at the end of this event. So if everyone's ready, we can go ahead and jump in. So my first question to all of you would be, can each of you kind of give a brief description of what you usually write and kind of a brief summary of your most recent romantasy book or one that is coming out soon?
Do you care who starts?
No.
Are we going a certain order? Okay.
No.
Okay, so I'll start. I write dark magical fiction is kind of like how I like to say it. I have a couple of published YA books. The Bane Witch and The Witches of Bone Hill are both adult witchy novels, but kind of always with a little bit darker slant than the typical cozy witchy novel. Because I just can't seem to do it in either way. I've tried. And I think that's it. Yeah.
I'll go next. I'm Brienne. So my first book was, well, my last 2 books are contemporary witchy romantasy type books. Lots of like practical magic vibes. But again, my first book was a little bit warmer, a tiny bit cozier. My second book, Spell Strings and Forgotten Things, which just came out couple of weeks ago, is definitely darker thematically and a little bit spicier, steamier, sexier, which was super fun. And progressively, my books, like as they're like the second one in the series is going to be even darker, even spicier. And so I think that's kind of the trend. And I love that for me. So
I love it for you too, having read your book recently.
Yeah.
I was like, I have it too. I could go next just because I have the same pattern. So I write what so far have been witchy rom-coms, but they really are contemporary fantasy with a romantic slant. And as they went along, Rise and Divine is the 5th and final one, and The Witches of Thistle Grove, and the darkest one by far. A lot of necromancy, definitely much spicier. All of them are to some degree spicy, but this one was like full throttle by my standards. So I very much support also just absolutely letting loose with every book afterwards. So I'm just going to continue with more goddesses and demons and witches and the projects to come.
Love that.
heck yes.
Are you gonna go? I'll go. I'm like, Allie, are you diving in? Okay.
I was also staring you
We're like
down.
looking
There
at
was
each
this.
other, like. I'm Sophie Jordan. My book that came out, I think last September, is my most current title is A Fire in the Sky. It is a romance fantasy. It has dragons, witches, yeah, Holdras, like different things set in it. It's very medieval vibe. I have written a lot of books in the romance genre, including YA and long ago paranormal fiction. I wrote a paranormal romance series when I was like 12 years old, and it, like in 2012, and it's being reissued in May, and it's a werewolf romance called Marked by Moonlight. So that is coming out in May, and the sequel to Fire in the Sky will be out in October, and that's like more dragons and more witches, and I threw in some more creatures. When you write the sequel, the world keeps building, and you keep layering and developing that fantasy world.
That's awesome.
Sophie's book literally ended on a cliffhanger, like a literal cliffhanger. Like we were hanging on a cliff. And so I am eagerly awaiting for
I think I owe you an arc.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah. I write I'm Ali Hazelwood. I only written one single like non-contemporary. It's Bright. I consider it a paranormal romance because when I grew up, I was reading, Nalini Singh and J.R. Ward and Christine Feehan, and they called it paranormal romance. I guess now it falls under romantasy, but yeah, I've only written the one so far, and the sequel. And yeah, that's it. And then yeah, I don't know. We'll see what else happens.
Except you have Mate coming.
Yeah, the sequel. Yeah. And
I love that title more than.
But by the way, yes, By the way, I had copy edits due yesterday, and today my I don't know. Does it happen to you guys when like your editor text like messages and is like, so when are you planning to turn in the copy edits? And you're like, wait, what? I did not. Tell me that it happens to you too, guys, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Suggestions, right? There's suggestions.
Yes.
That's right. Are they?
I emailed my editor a while ago and I was like, so when exactly did you want? Because then we didn't have a hard date. And I'm like, can you give me, I need like guidelines here, because I'm somebody who will definitely skate under the radar until, 2 days before.
I know when it's real quiet, like the deadline's coming and it's really quiet. And I'm like, they don't really think they're getting it, do they?
No. I always get anxious, and then I ask for extensions before I need them. And then I'm like, never mind. I didn't need that. And then I give it, they're like, why did you do that? Now you messed up our whole thing. Like, I'm sorry. I just got worried that I wouldn't be able to, but then I did it. Which is maybe the worst of all worlds.
You just gotta have the cushion.
Yeah.
Ava, are you ever late? I bet you're not late.
I'm not late, but the last one, I was really working on it right up until the day of. And I, like you, like I wanted to ask for an extension, but then I was like, I think I can do it. I think I can do it. It was so stressful, but that's not, like, my nature is to, like, I show up everywhere 30 minutes early, right? Like that kind of thing. So I was like, I need to ask for the extension, but then I just kept thinking, I think I can do it. But it was really like,
down to the wire.
Yeah, so nerve-wracking. Yeah.
It really is. It's like playing the lottery, but not in a fun way.
Right.
I love that you're talking about it like it was like the first time that this happened to you, when I have literally turned in stuff at like 11:58 of the day it was due. Please teach me your ways.
I think that's totally fine. I've definitely pulled all-nighters, and then like as if that's normal for someone. I'm just like, what do I think this is, college? Like, who does that? And even why would I have done this? Like, you got it, here you go. It's 9 a.m.
Right.
You didn't even notice that you didn't get it yesterday. I stayed up all night to finish this.
And they're probably like, oh, I won't even get to it.
No,
exactly.
Right. You're like, what did I do that for?
Only I care. Yeah.
I'll get to this in a couple weeks. Thanks so much.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Maybe one day I will give you edits, but
In a couple months, we'll find out.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I will say it's very impressive that you guys procrastinate and bang out these amazing novels that your readers love. So hats off to you guys.
I will say not everyone does. I'm writing a co-authored book with my best friend. She does not do this at all. And she's like, our deadline's really coming up. And I'm like, it's in 2.5 months. What do you mean? She's
That
like,
seems
it's
really far.
close-ish.
Yeah.
I was like,
Got
close-ish?
so much time.
Yeah, like close-ish according to what? Like nothing is close-ish in 2.5 months. But yeah, there are people who don't. So now I can't on that one.
Bless them, bless them.
I need your best friend as my co-author, so please ask them.
It's really,
If
really, really wonderful to work with and very much keeps me task-oriented.
I love it.
Okay, kind of getting into writing process because we've been talking about it a little. First, if you guys could all talk about how you became interested in writing romance or romantasy, and then Ava, a caveat for you, if you could say specifically the inspiration behind the Bane Witch, that would be amazing.
Okay. Well, I decided I was going to be an author very definitively at like 8 years old. So that's kind of it's been with me my entire life. Of course, I didn't have any concept of like agents or, acquiring editors or anything like that. So it was just like coming home and announcing to my family, like, this is what will happen now. And so I've kind of been pursuing it ever since in some way, shape, or form. And I started writing young adult initially, which kind of always has to have a romance thread. It's just sort of part of young adult to always have sort of a romance thread. And so that's probably where I sort of cut my teeth on having some romance in the novel, but I wouldn't say that romance has ever been my focus. For me, it's usually kind of in my books in particular, kind of takes a second, it's a backseat to the main character's arc. But it's important, and it definitely is a really important part of the plot in the Bane Witch for sure. The Bane Witch specifically was inspired by a phase I was going through where I was kind of obsessed with the idea of female assassins for a while. And I was watching like some different shows, Killing Eve, and I forget what the other one was called. And I was just sort of like, ooh, I want to write like a badass lady assassin. But I was initially kind of carried this idea around as like a YA novel idea, like, oh, it'll be like a boarding school for, teen assassins, or I don't know. But I tuck these ideas. I have a lot of these that happen all the time. I think that's something a lot of writers have. And then you just tuck them in the back of your mind, which is what happened with this one. And I never did anything with it. And then eventually I was like, how could I make it? What if I made it witchy? What if they were like witch assassins somehow? And that's where the poison eating idea kind of came in, and the sort of hunting predators and all of that sort of came from me just kind of gravitating to that and saying, like, what if they were adults instead of YA, and what if it was witchy, and what would that magic system look like? And then it just kind of all unfolded from there.
I'm sorry, that's so awesome.
Thank
I
you.
love it. That's great. For me, I don't really read anything unless there is some sort of romance thread, because I literally I'm sorry, but I have no interest. Like, if there is not a romantic, like, it doesn't have to be the main plot. Like, it does, same for me, especially my first book, the romantic plot was very, very, very secondary. And then I thought it was way more prevalent in my second book that just came out. But a bunch of people have said, like, oh, I love that the romance doesn't take over the plot. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, that's good. So, but again, I think it's just the trajectory. That arc is gonna, I'm working on a pitch for a high fantasy romantasy series where it's like very much about, yes, the FMC's like journey, internal and external character arc, but very, very tied in with the romantic element as well. But yeah, because I never want to read anything without an element of romance, I definitely never want to, like, I can't write anything without it. So it was a natural progression for sure for me.
I can go with was anyone else gonna go?
I was just going to say about that, I grew up reading romance a lot and writing it a lot. So naturally now I'm reading things about thrillers and dark stuff and serial killers. And maybe it's just, my vibe right now. So it's like you put that in like a jar and shook it for me, Ava. Like, I was like, oh, thriller, serial killer, let's go. A woman, getting you know, getting her life back and a little vengeance in there. I just felt like a warm blanket, a cozy thing.
A cozy poisonous blanket.
Blanket.
A cozy thing for me to read right now. Give me that.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I think a little bit of poison is totally medicinal and very comforting. So I found it, I don't know, there's something about it that really spoke to me, which probably, I don't know, probably disturbing and people shouldn't ask me too much about it, but I connected very, very strongly with it. And I think I've always enjoyed, I've also always loved, I grew up reading books that had romantic subplots, but I specifically realized why some books put me off a little bit. And it was because I was so intent on having open door sex scenes. And this was unusual in a lot of genre fiction. Like, you're not necessarily going to get that in sci-fi or fantasy. And so the books that I really loved were books like like all of Jacqueline Carey's books and the Diana Gabaldon. And it was like a revelation to me, like, oh, you can absolutely write a very speculative fiction genre book that is heavy on sex if you want. Like, you could do that. So I think most of my books go in that direction because that's what I like to read. Unless I don't want to read about that at all, in which case I'm just like, nope, I want a hard sci-fi or something that has nothing to do. I don't care about any of this. So I go one of two ways, and mostly it's just the explicit way. Very thirsty as a reader.
Aren't we all?
Right.
I totally agree. I actually feel like I read two things. One is romance, and the other one is the most like terrible true crime slash thrillers slash horror stuff. I don't know why.
Just like it's an extreme,
Yeah.
like extreme emotion, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know?
I was recently talking to an author at a festival, and I was telling her how into horror I have been, especially like now with the way things are going. It's, I feel like a lot of people are looking for more cozy stuff, but I'm like, no, I want the most miserable thing ever. I want a dystopia, okay? I just want to know that it could be even worse than it is right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, I was also just reading romance, and I came to writing from fan fiction. So yeah, and the shipping part of fan fiction, like so yeah, like it's really just about the relationship for me. So yeah, I love that. And I also wanted to say, yes, like your book really does bind these two obsessions of mine. One of my favorite, actually probably my favorite movie ever is Promising Young Woman. And oh, it's the only movie that I finished it and I restarted watching it from the beginning. I was like, I need more of this. So, I like a mad, an angry woman. I don't know. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Well, I think we put on some sort of list, like immediately, like the dangerous ladies who love comeuppance.
Would you say the kind of way you come about the idea of your novel changes based off of whether you have fantasy with a romance subplot versus romance with a fantasy subplot? Would you say the characters come first when you're writing romance with fantastical elements, and then the story kind of comes first when it's the other way around?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
I mean, I think that is really smart if you know that when you're starting your book. But sometimes I sat down with A Fire in the Sky and I don't know that I had fully declared to myself, this is a romance set in a fantasy world, or is this a fantasy with a romance? And they are definitely two different things, right?
Yeah.
And the readers, maybe they themselves don't internalize yet, but they have preferences. Readers like certain things too. And I do know when I read a review what kind of reader they are, based on, okay, I guess this is more. But again, I think it's probably a romance in a fantasy world, but I'll read a review and they read it the opposite. Everybody's what's the word? Their scale is different, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, like you look at the different ratings, like the chili peppers that have been assigned to my
Right.
freaking book, and it's like, oh, this is like 1.5 chili pepper, and then other people are like, oh,
Right.
it's 5. Like, I don't know what,
Exactly.
different people are reading different things and have different levels. But
Exactly.
the high fantasy romantasy, the pitch that I'm working on, um, it completely the relationship, these three people dropped into my brain, and the whole scene was completely developed. Like it was just there, and then I knew, like, it was the weirdest thing because from that relationship I knew exactly what kind of world that relationship needed to like thrive in, and then from there I knew, okay, instantly I know exactly what the magic system is going to be. So it's weird because it started with the relationship, but it because of the relationship kind of determined the fantasy world. And so I don't know, it mix and match, I guess.
Yeah, I can say for myself, I'm really terrible at genres. Like any part of writing that's kind of formulaic is the part of it that my brain struggles to compute. So like I have weird challenges with like tropes and genres, or like figuring out like I'm writing this genre or I'm writing this trope or things like that are always like sort of challenging for me. I just kind of have um, an overarching interest in a character or a premise or something that I want to see happen, and then everything kind of feeds out of that. And I tend to sort of write, I think, these books that straddle genres. It's hard for me to be like, oh, I'm going to be in this box. I'm going to write this specific romantasy, or I'm going to write this specific. I'm not great at that. At that. And I've seen the Bane Witch classified as like so many different genres, and it doesn't help me figure it out at all. I'm like, did I write that? I don't know, um so for me, I can't really say that I'm thinking that hard about it. I do have like a proposal that I've been working on that I shared with my agent that I was like, oh, this is a romantasy, like a true romantasy proposal. And she came back to me. She was like, but is it, like, in like the nicest agent way? She was like, but is it though? Like either you're going to need to work on this somewhere, or and I was like, oh god, here we go. Now I got to figure out, like, is it romantic fantasy or is it related? And so it's just that part of it for some reason is really kind of difficult for my brain. I think maybe because a lot of my writing is super intuitive, and so I'm not analytical enough maybe when I'm in that zone to be like, this is what I'm doing, you know?
I think that's I think it's so common now to feel that way because it didn't always used to be this way, but I think to such a degree that book talk has shaped how publishing works and how book selling works, where all of a sudden tropes are like marketable terms instead of
Right.
just things that used to arise naturally out of books. And so I think a lot of people, many people write genre bending books, but now it's in your interest to be able to clearly define, here's
Oh
what I'm
yeah.
doing so that someone can go and like put the right hashtag on it, or like I find that very difficult. And I think it's when you have any kind of ambiguous premise in any way, you're always going to be making people angry because they came in thinking they were going to get something. And it's like, I didn't mean to tell you that this is what it was. It's
Right.
just that someone decided we were going to call it a romantasy as opposed to a dark fantasy in which romance happens, as if
Right.
romantasy is like a term in the dictionary that we have clear meanings about at this
Yeah.
point. But people feel very strongly about it. So, like,
Yeah.
I've always felt that I liked writing character driven, dark fantasy with a romantic, like strong romantic elements. And that's all I really needed to know when I was writing my books. And I think in the very beginning when I started, I was like, oh, it has to be a rom-com. It's rom-coms need these certain things. And then I just kind of drifted back away from that to whatever felt more intuitive to me too. Even
Yeah.
though I do plot things out, I have like maybe like a 1 page sort of plot beat thing before I start, and it changes, so it doesn't really matter anyway. And like character sheets, but aside from that, I think intuitive is exactly the way that I feel about it when I'm writing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying that like tropes are such a useful way to talk about books, but
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, I didn't mean to imply that this would be a rom-com, and I don't think I ever said it. I'm sorry. Like it's difficult. I totally get it. But for me, I also totally agree with what Brienne said for me, what I care about is the relationship, and then I am going to force the word to act in a way, and the magic system or whatever to act in a way that is going to serve the relationship. And so if you see like holes or like problems in my word building, please don't mention it, because it was needed for the relationship to work, and we have decided that this is what happens. Executive order. I'm sorry.
Speaking of world building, how much research is needed for world building in your novels? And do you love the research process? Is it really tedious? I see Brienne already.
It's a
What are you saying?
way to
Cutting out.
Did she?
Oh yeah, it is.
be writing.
Ellie froze.
How do we? I never know what to do when that happens.
All right, one of us will talk. There she is.
Okay.
Sorry.
We're frozen a little. Um,
My internet.
fantasy is very is a medieval based fictional, world. So I don't know that I needed to do too much research. Mostly keeping myself straight on what I've created, right? In my this is my world, and these are the definitions. Let's keep it straight because I'm writing a sequel. And then in my book, so Fire in the Sky is the adult origin story for a trilogy, a YA trilogy I wrote in 2000 and I think I wrote it in 2012. It's when I first met Ava Morgan, way back in the day. Like that's
I came to her book event. I was so excited.
I wrote this Dragon YA trilogy in 2012, and
when you were both 12.
When I was I was 12 myself, and I it was popular at the time, and then life moves on, and I wrote other books, and then this, Dragon book happened, and my editor at HarperCollins was like, you did Dragon books. You want to come back to that? And I was like, well, I have the origin story because my YA Dragon trilogy was contemporary set. And I'm like, I have an origin story. I knew their origin, right? When you have something set in a contemporary paranormal, there's an origin story to it. So I basically, Fire in the Sky is that origin. But it was funny because, so my research was a book I wrote over 10 years ago. And then I was reading it and I was like, well, I don't like that part of it. I can't use it. And you know what? I'm going to pretend it's not there. It's like what Allie said, like there's a hole, it happened. I don't care because I need to write this book and make it the best book it can be right now and how it works. Maybe something in this origin story doesn't mesh with the, my YA, but
You create your hand, that's fine.
Nobody has said anything to me about it. Nobody has said, hey, that rule, like, how does that work? And I'm like, nobody has complained about it. So they'll there's other complaints, don't get me wrong, but it's not that. Yeah.
There's always other complaints.
Yeah.
I always joke that my like catchphrase is I did some research. I am a freak when it comes to research because I love languages. I took like 3 years of ancient Greek in college. I speak it, read it, write it. I love it. And so especially when it comes to like anything with Hebrew, with Greek, with Aramaic, like a lot of the, dead languages too. I love it. So a lot of that research. And then I also co-wrote, weirdly, an adult high fantasy with my best friend. And I'm not allowed to like publicly announce it yet because the contract isn't signed, but we spent 7 years building up this world, and it wasn't like a full-time thing or anything like that, but we spent, you know, like constructing everything from the ground up, the religion, the customs, the cultures, the clothes, the prayers, like literally everything. And so when we actually sat down to start writing, it was like everything was there. And so it was so gratifying because we had spent so long researching all these different things and compiling all the information. So it's like, okay, if anybody has any question, like our editor would ask a question, like, oh yeah, we know the answer to that because we spent so freaking long like building up the world. So lots, yeah, I'm a big research person, especially in my witchy books because there's so much symbolism with food and spices and herbs and tea and all that kind of stuff. So lots of research on my end. An exorbitant amount, some might say.
That's amazing though. It's like you actually had a PhD on your own book before it existed.
Yeah, that's pretty
You made it
cool.
up and then you created it. It must be, it's, I can only imagine how satisfying that is. Like I know
It's so
the
fun.
answer. I know what it is. I've never been there, but it must be amazing.
Oh.
Well, I can say that for me, research is a double-edged sword. Sometimes I love it, and sometimes I find it really annoying because it's maybe halting the flow or whatever, or I find that I'm having to dive down some rabbit hole just so I can write like a phrase in a sentence. But it's important to me that things don't stand out to readers who might know or might know better. And so I try to make things as plausible as I can. And you know, I've been a little lazy up to this point. So making my stuff contemporary means that I don't really have to do a lot of. I mean, there's still world building involved, especially around the magic system and stuff. But obviously, like everything's set in a current day USA or some equivalent, something adjacent. So I can avoid some amount of world building, I suppose. Um, but there's times where if I really love the subject matter, like poisonous plants was fascinating to me, so I enjoyed all of that research so much, and I could have just gone off on that for a long time. But it's weird sometimes the things that come up that you're like, oh wait, now I need to know how to say that. It's just some little thing, but you need to be able to phrase it correctly, and then sometimes I'll get quite annoyed that I have to do as much research as I do just to figure out how to like phrase this one thing. And with the Bane Witch, that happens some with some of the legal stuff, like having some chapters from the investigators' perspectives. Like I don't write, typically, investigative thriller kind of things with like cops on the beat or anything like that. So it's kind of like, oh God, let me figure out what do they call this and what do they call that. And then I kind of like, by the time we get to copy edits, I'm pretty much having a trauma response to everything I'm getting like questioned on because I'm like, oh, let me find that tiny bit of research. I have like 1,000 web pages saved so I can go back and
you forget you
anyway,
checked it and then they question it and you're like, oh wait, like I have bookmarked like who is best friends with the like online etymology page. Is that just me? Because I write, and I know it's like a medieval vibe and it's a fantasy world. So if I say that word is there, it's there. It's
Right.
fantasy. But at the same time, I don't want it to be so jarring where you're like, no way is that word feel
Medieval.
right? The vibe isn't right,
Right.
So sometimes they would flag me. They're like, is that feeling? I'm like, I've already had this personal debate.
Right, exactly. But then what will happen is between me thinking all of that through or researching something and them coming back to me with something, I will have fully forgotten.
You forget.
So it's a whole thing for me to go look that stuff back up again, and I'll suddenly be doubtful so that I have to like reprove it to myself.
And speaking on kind of readers perceiving your books, once you release a book, is it exciting to see all of, the readers in your like DMs like saying they love it? Is it anxiety inducing more so because like now they're perceiving something that was like kind of your child for so long?
Yes.
I have strong opinions about this. I would love to never, ever, ever have to hear by being tagged with 3 or 2 stars or anything less than that on Instagram, so that someone who enjoyed it and was like, this was fine, but it mostly sucked, and at you, like, why? I didn't, that's cool that you thought that. It's fine. I have no problem with that. But why did you feel the need to insert me into this conversation? Like those ones, and sometimes it's okay. Like once it stops hurting horribly, you're like, all right, well, that's all right. But then the ones where you'll get people being like, I was really in the mood for like a wizard noir, I don't really know what I'm talking about. It's always a Dresden Files or something. Like it's always like a very specific thing that actually exists in the world. And I just didn't want this. And it's like, but it didn't say the Dresden Files on it. So I'm sorry for your disappointment. So I love getting DMs. I really, really love getting DMs, especially when it's from queer readers. It makes me so happy. And they're usually incredibly kind and joyful. And then like sometimes we get to know each other and then we talk like over the course of several books. But I really would love to be left out of the discussion. You're 3 stars below. I don't need to know.
Well, and a lot of them think 3 stars is great. Like they're
I
like,
know,
that's
which is
great,
odd to
right?
me.
Because if I really like a book, I usually give it a 5. And then they're like,
Or 5,
they're
yeah.
like a 5. Why not? I give 5s all the time.
Yeah.
I track my books on like BookBub. I just track my reading list. So I'm always in there, like, love it, 5. And then someone was like, oh no, like I've only given like one book in my life a 5. That's like a big deal. And I was like, oh, okay.
That way.
All right.
If I finish a book, it's going to be 5 stars because I'm not reading it. If I don't like
But do you
it,
think they feel that way
if
about
I like it, I enjoy it. It's 5 stars.
do you think, yeah, it's like, do they approach food, their meals like that too? Like, it's the best thing I've ever had. It's a 4.
They're only one thing. They've only had one thing that was the best thing they've
One
ever
5
had.
in their life. that they-
Everything else has been horrible.
It is weird. It's weird to be like you mentioned, perceived, which I think is such a cute way to say it. I've been seeing that a lot, and I was like, somebody posted on Threads like, I'm so excited I wrote a book. Oh, I wrote a book. I'm going to be perceived now. Yeah, that does kind of address it.
I mean, that's the job, right? We wanted, we could have been writers that never shared our work with anyone. We could have been that, but we put it out to the world in the world and to be judged,
Yeah, and I think that there's ultimately something to be said that we know inherently that every book is not for every person. Absolutely. And there are things that are outside of our control. When my first book came out, a lot of people, I had never heard of the cozy genre. Because I didn't read it. And so some people started calling it, oh, it's so cozy, oh, it's so cozy. And then that people started using that to describe the book, people who hadn't even read it. And then it kind of blew up into this whole thing and got a bunch of negative reviews because I think cozy is supposed to be like very kind of lower stakes, and unfortunate side effects had like suicide ideation, suicide attempt, death of a loved one through cancer, and like some heavier themes, and people just got so mad because they're like, this isn't cozy, this isn't cozy. I'm like, I didn't say it was cozy, I'm sorry. Like I have no control over what other people say. So there is definitely an element of like, you just have to find that peace within yourself where you say, okay, it is there. And yes, I literally just yesterday got tagged in a 3-star review where they were like, I had a really hard time with this book. I'm like, I'm sorry. But they
share. Post that to my story.
I appreciate you.
I always want, like, it's so hard because that's reader's space and it shouldn't be, but with the 2 stars especially, or like whenever someone tags you below the 3, I always have this temptation to be like, I had a really hard time with you reading my book. Why did you do
listen, the first review for Spell Strings and Forgotten Things on NetGalley was a 1-star review because there were queer characters, and they were literally like, I wish there had been a trigger warning or like a trigger warning page for the queer characters because I wouldn't have read it. And so 1 star. And I'm like, that one I take a little bit of issue with.
I think, yeah, fair. So I get the cozy thing also because of my covers, and I really at this point don't know what to do. When The Witches of Bone Hill came out, I thought, it has like a spooky house with only one window on, and there are bats, and there are like these things that I thought were like there's a bone on there, like, so I really thought like people would get that it kind of had this gothic spooky thing. And so many readers were like, don't let this cozy cover fool you. And but they still enjoyed it for the most part. But I really want readers to know what they're getting as much as we all want that as much as we can. You do the best you can, And so when when we were doing the cover for this, was really pushing, like, it's got to be darker, it's got to be scarier. I insisted on this like thriller font and the blood on the flower and I was like, this is it. Like, people will understand. We've got eerily glowing windows and like definitely right.
I love it.
Nefarious things are going on in this very dark cabin in the woods. Like, I couldn't make the cabin in the woods any darker. And still I'm seeing where sometimes people are like, no, don't be fooled by the cozy cover. So I don't know what to do anymore. And I do the best I can in the descriptions. And of course we put trigger warnings out for all of my work, which certainly require it. But I think at the end of the day, we sort of do the best we can, and you hope readers find it and connect. I do see readers saying the same with this one, like, this wasn't what I thought it would be, but I'm glad, or it's not what I normally read, but I'm glad I got it because I enjoyed it, so that's great. But I always worry a little bit with my stuff because it is dark and it can be heavy, and I just don't want people stepping into that totally unawares, but there's only so much you can do, And for me, every time a book releases, it's simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. It's such a roller coaster, and then all of my PTSD symptoms get really flared up, and it's super annoying. And so I'm like trying to navigate that and try to behave like a normal human, things like this, But it's like, I'm delighted to see it out there. I'm delighted to see people reading it. I've been writing a really long time. I've just been sort of laboring in the shadows and not making a lot of headway for so long. So it's a big deal for me to finally be in a place where I have readers, it's not something I take for granted or take lightly at all, but it's also a little bit terrifying. And I can say with this book, I just thought people would think, well, she's fully lost it this time. Like, she's totally unhinged. Like, for sure she's gone off some deep end. And I had a couple of nightmares even before it came out. I really thought people were going to be like, well, she's lost her marbles. But as it turned out, they're really showing up. They're here for it. They're here for all the murder. So
and like Ali said, I think horror is having a moment, and dark thrillers have never gone away. And those can be so dark. There is definitely an audience that is hungry for your book.
Yeah.
I love the dark. Give me that. I'm like, yeah, give me a horror.
It's like the opposite, sort of the way that everyone got very saturated with I think the idea of true crime and all of the female victims. I feel the opposite about books like yours, where I'm like, oh my God, how many, like, I'd like to keep the body count of how many and got poisoned here who deserved it, because it's just, there's something very satisfying about it. And timely, I guess. Like, this is the moment where all of us, or some of us, are looking for books like that. So I loved that. It was oddly a comfort read, because that anger felt very, very cozy to me. So in that sense, maybe it is cozy. It's like cozy rage. You could be a new genre, cozy rage.
Cozy rage.
That sounds like a great genre.
I think
that's the new niche.
You heard it here first.
I love that. I feel like different romance books, the good thing about romance books is I feel like they connect with different people. And like, I've heard people say, like, that book literally changed my life. Like, after reading it, I'm a completely different person. And I feel like that's such a unique thing about the genre, is you realize things that you didn't realize about yourself before reading it. And I feel like everyone, despite the negativity that comes with releasing your books, I hope all of you have experienced
positive anxiety, right?
Yeah.
We're still doing it, so we must like it.
We must be loving it.
And
Don't
then
you feel like, I love when I meet a reader and they'll say to me, they'll cite a book, such and such book changed my life, and instantly I have an idea of who that person is. Do y'all feel that way too? Like based on what the book they're talking about is,
Yes.
but I'm like, I shouldn't judge, but now I know you.
There's like this non-posted books. I think that's just completely very valid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's
The
really
sister
sweet.
and the traveling pans. Like, was
Oh,
that like that
yeah.
changed you?
Love
Well,
that
the one
book.
that I can't, whenever anyone brings up that this book changed my life, all I remember is the mom, like in a mommy group, like at my kid's PTA when my kid was in elementary, and she was like, and it was kind of new. She goes, "It was new. And you're gonna die." She goes, "Have you read 50 Shades of Grey?" And I was like,
I knew you were gonna say 50 Shades. I knew it.
she goes, "It's changed my life," and I was like, "Tell me more." Like, this book changed your life. I've seen you in a totally different way. And which
I
is
always thought, where do you ever change that? Like, follow it to the natural conclusion? Like, how has it? Like, what do you mean? So,
I want to know more.
slight problematic vanilla kink has changed your life.
I just want to
Like,
know
what are
more.
you doing with this? But like, I'm always dying to know more. What people would say this to me about 50 Shades.
And but she has never, but that same mom had never, and she'd known me for a while, never picked up one of my romance novels. Never. Because she doesn't read those kinds of books.
Until then.
Look at Brianne's face, it's so confused.
Love it. I love it. I'm here for it. I'm trying to think of if there's like a romance book that like I could confidently say changed my life. I don't know if there is.
I mean, hey, romance saves lives. I do believe that.
Oh my gosh.
100%, right? Because, it's a big thing. We've all heard from those readers who were reading our books as they're going through the worst moment of their life, which I feel, it's a privilege that my book was there for you in those moments. Would never discount that. But I don't know. Ava, if someone says your book changed their life, I'm like, again, tell me more. Like, what?
Worrying.
I want to know. What changes did you make?
Yeah.
We look in your kitchen,
Who did you kill? Tell us more.
Who's just
Oh.
disappeared around them recently?
I know. This newly widowed woman, your book changed my life.
I do feel like anyone who says that about your book should be like part of like a book club that's like first rule of we don't talk about it.
Guys,
Right.
oh my gosh, I think we just brainstormed a story. Like, seriously, right there.
Yes.
That is the beginning of a book right there.
For sure. Oh,
all right, anthology right here.
Anthology.
It's happening.
The Poison Sisters.
yeah. There you go.
I mean, we're all thinking like our
We are
minds-
now. Our writer brains are off and running.
I know.
Oh.
I love that though, because I love there's so many different genres of romance. So if a person says they read specifically this genre, you automatically can kind of deduce some things about their personality and who they are. But all genres of romance are great. And I feel like
Preach.
romance is, range. And romance is the one
Amen.
thing with so many genres. And then I know we kind of touched a little bit on deadlines and writing deadlines earlier, but I wanted to ask the question of how do you balance kind of loving writing versus your creativity being on the timeline and knowing that you have to get it out at a certain point?
I mean, I'll go first because I feel like this is very easy for me to answer when I say that the deadline inspires the creativity for me, which is probably so unhealthy.
Guys, your head.
But I thrive in like a situation where there's like, for example, if my child broke a leg or got seriously injured, anything like that, I'm not the person who freaks out. I'm the person who remains deadly calm like eerily so. And I'm just like, okay, step by step, let's go through the process. We're going to get everything fixed, worked out. And I do really well when there's a deadline because it excites me and I like to meet a challenge. I'm a very competitive person. So I'm like, yeah, let's go. I can do this. And it inspires the creativity. But the other thing is that I usually have multiple projects that I'm working on at once. So if I am struggling with a little bit of creativity in one project, I will switch to the other one and work on that for a little bit and then just kind of go back and forth. So makes it more fun.
I'm kind of a slow and steady wins the race kind of girl.
Well,
Like,
honestly,
you know, how do you get through a bag of chips one chip at a time, right? Like it's so it's very much like daily, right? I try like so if I get too task mastery about it, like I don't do word counts or anything like that while I'm writing because that part of my brain will create so much anxiety that then it will shut down the creative part. So I have to it's just a daily like get up, do a little bit of a routine, sit down, what can I get out today? You know, what can I and some days the flow is great and so much more comes and other days it's like start and stop and start and stop and start and stop and just you know you just work your just one day at a time and try not to think about the looming deadline too much, but the thing that gets hard for me is distractions, things that come in. So like a book releasing obviously like pulls so much time and energy away from the actual writing process of whatever else I'm doing, holidays, right? Things like that. Anything like that. It always inevitably kind of takes more time and energy away than I was anticipating. And the transition process of going in and out of the story is probably the most challenging part for me. So if I get away from something for a little bit, it's a whole thing to bring myself back to it and get back into it. I sort of just want to be like a little gremlin in my cave with my laptop. And then just I have like a messenger who just takes it like a carrier pigeon and they just take it to the editor when it's done and like nobody bug me anymore, you know? And like so it's a whole thing for me. It's really yeah, that's the hardest part for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the start and stopping is problematic. But for me, beginning, I spend so much time on that first 100 pages.
Mhm.
And then I end up crashing the rest of the book in like a month. But I will spend months on just the first 100 pages. I wish I would stop doing that. I wish I could not do that. I wish I could like be like, okay, a month for the first 100 pages, then the next 200. No, I don't know. Why do I do that to myself, guys, at the end, right?
Because
Like,
you're setting so much
know.
up, I think. There's so
Yeah.
much that happens that gets established there
I
in all
still
those
think
little
it, and
details,
then
and then you can,
right. And then I'll still hit like a eureka, like an idea in the middle or the end. And I'm back at the beginning because then I have to like thread the thing through.
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. My book is due May 1st. I'm going to let y'all tell me if this is terrible. I'm at 40,000 words in and it's due May 1st. And it's so funny because my closest friends are like, hey, that's not that bad for you. You know,
How long?
they know
What's
me,
your
you know,
I'm trying to do the math in my head.
I know.
what's your usual word count? What's your final?
I could turn for a rough draft, I'll write it shorter and I'll add quite a bit in the revision process. Like I think A Fire in the Sky and A Scar in the Bone, their rough drafts were in the 70s. So, and then the final was around 100. So, yeah. So in my mind, I'm already playing with the like, okay, that's in 6 weeks, 5 weeks, and what
Right.
should I be doing every day, right? You know, how much
Right.
do I need? And then and then the
Not
start and stop
today. You're good.
I know. And then I have the start.
Dominate that.
I have 1 week in April where I have house guests and I can't do anything.
Like
1 week.
more than 1,100 words a day. Just kidding.
I know. Right. I need to write more than 11. But yeah. So it's like you kind of map what you think you need and how you think a book is going to go. And then sometimes the whole thing changes, right? Point of view changes, character. Oh, I have another point of view I'm adding in, and
Yeah.
It's so weird. It's like, it's the weirdest job I feel. I mean, I know there are weirder jobs out there. That's a bold statement, but
Oh,
it's a really unique position because it's all coming from our own brains. And like exactly like you mentioned, which has happened to me so many times where I'll, get to a third of the way through the book and then I'll be like, ooh, damn
Yeah.
it. you have to go back and thread it through from the beginning and do the connective tissue and make sure all this, so it's such a unique, interesting, it's like a sculpturist chiseling
Yeah,
away,
I like that.
at
Mhm.
the stone, and the design, the image is always there in his head, and he just has to chip away at it and reveal it. It's wild and
And it
awesome.
never like nobody like I know y'all all get it, and you talk to people. They're like, "Is it no? It never gets easier. Like it's not easier. Your process changes, right? The
And learn
writing,
so
the
much.
process, and the
Yeah.
type of story you write, you change, but it never gets easier. It becomes different. I feel like in every book.
Yeah, I think every book is unique. It's sort of like if you've had kids, every pregnancy is different, you'll hear, or every delivery is sort of different, and you have these sort of stories. And I think every book is like that. I'll think to myself, it's going to be like the last one, and then it'll just end up, it's nothing like the last one. Why did I think it would be that way?
No, and some books are easier, some books are harder. And Allie, you travel a lot. Like I think about you sometimes. I'm like, she's traveling a lot and still getting it done. Go, girl, you know?
I am in awe of
No,
that.
the last 3 months, I feel like I hit that.
Uh-oh.
No, we really
I was
No.
like, this is too much.
why
I
right
can
now?
do this.
Yes.
And I am quitting now. Okay, but don't you feel like being on deadline? Being on deadline really does stimulate creativity, but for like any other project that is not the one that you have due. Like, don't you feel like you get your best ideas that you are the most pumped for when you are on deadline for something else?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You want to hear? So one author, I read this once, and what this author compared that to was when you're writing a book, you're in that book, and you get this tantalizing idea. She was like, "Well, you don't cheat on your marriage. You hang in there. It's like your marriage. You can't step out on your marriage. You stick with that book, and you do not cheat." And I was like, now, whenever I want to like go away, like make notes, and I'm like, oh. I don't make notes and play around and do like a proposal. Is that like just making out and kissing? Like
That is emotional cheating. It's
Only above the clothes.
Having an emotional affair with these other characters.
cheating, but that's it.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Actually, I missed that part. I used to get to do a lot more of that. There was like a brief period where I was writing full time, and now I don't get to do that anymore. And my the daily job is like consuming enough that I can procrastinate very effectively because I get like some nice dopamine hits when I write the things that I'm doing for my day job. So I don't have that anymore. I guess I just like cheat on my book with my day job and vice versa. There's not enough room. I can't have like polyamorously have more than those. That many. It's too many. It becomes too many. I can't even cheat effectively. So it really
Why
gets
choose? Why choose?
back and forth.
yeah, you don't cheat on the person you're cheating with.
Right.
Like that's how it works. Like you're like you only have I swear, I've never I'm a faithful spouse. I swear.
Okay. Last question, because it looks like we're running out of time, unfortunately. How would you define success as an author? Is it finishing the book? Is it having it well received? The sales? Is it a combination? What's your personal definition for succeeding?
Mine is always changing, and I have a constant internal dialogue with myself, like, stop moving the bar, stop it, stop doing that. Like, you made it to this point, take time to appreciate. But the second I get to something that I was holding in my head of like, okay, when I do this, then I've done it, or I've accomplished something or whatever. The second I get there, my brain automatically readjusts it to the next thing. It's really annoying. Don't recommend. Don't recommend. 0 out of 5 stars, but it is a thing that just happens for me neurologically. It's kind of frustrating. So I'm really trying to work on like, take a minute. It's precious. Be in the celebration of whatever that was, even if it was just that I finished this project or I got through a rough draft or whatever. But I'm very much, it's like the, what do they call those obligate ram ventilators, the sharks that have to swim to to breathe. Like I feel like that's the kind of person I've become. Like if I stop moving,
Yeah.
it's going to be bad. So I just keep pushing.
I think it moves. I think you can also walk it back, which I didn't think was going to be possible. Like my goal was for such a long time, like, what if you were a New York Times bestseller? And then it happened like one time, and I was like, wow. And then it immediately stopped like holding the, of
Right.
course, I would love for it to have it happen again.
Right.
But then I realized what I really, really prize is just the security of knowing that I'll get to do this again and
Yeah.
somebody will pay me to do it again. And
Yes.
just the idea, I would love to say like I would do it again if someone didn't pay me, but probably I wouldn't. Like I would like I like doing it as a form of work for which I'm compensated, and I like other
Yeah,
people.
because now you tasted it. You're living
Yes,
it.
exactly. I
Yeah.
can't go back.
Right.
But that's all I need. I just need someone to say, okay, here's a contract. You have another contract. And that to me feels like success. Like I have established security for myself.
I definitely think I've been doing it a long time, and just that I'm still here. That exactly the same thing. Just that, I have hit certain milestones, but it all comes and goes. Still some books resonate more than others and are more successful than others, however you want to measure that. But yeah, just that I can keep doing it for a living, I feel is my measure of success. Same.
Yeah, I feel like it has to be internal because, like in this industry, is that a mermaid?
It's like a mermaid.
It has to be internal because if it's hello, this industry you cannot rely on anything. A book can sell well and then the following one doesn't. A book can like have great reviews and then the following one doesn't. It's so outside of what we can control that I am just done with like caring about. And it's very hard. Like I feel like I probably sound very enlightened when I say I only have to look inside myself, but it's more of like an act of desperation. I too have an anxiety disorder, so what I do is just kind of like hide and pretend that nothing is happening. Like we were talking about reviews. I have so many, like I have websites blocked. Like I cannot even go on Amazon to buy toothpaste because there are reviews on the website. So I have to tell my husband, please, can you order toothpaste? Because I literally cannot go anywhere on the internet where something about me might be written. And that was like it was really good for me. Like I kind of stopped looking at the outside and started looking at, I have written books that I was like, I don't know, this didn't end up the way I wanted it. And so having felt that, now when it happens that like the book at the end, I reread it and I'm like, wow, this is what I wanted it to be. That has to be me being happy. And honestly, again, I don't look a lot at my reviews, but I look at my sales and I can tell you that the books that sell best are not necessarily the ones that I think came out exactly how I wanted them. So, we have to agree to disagree with the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's same for me where for me, success, the bar is always moving. Ava, like you were saying, I'm like 100% the same. I'm like, okay, God, I was raised by a military father and I have like a very militaristic mindset naturally, because I'm really hard. I'm hard on myself. I was diagnosed with OCD at a very young age, about 5, and I have high anxiety. And so that I'm very type A. I'm very, very, very type A personality. I'm like a go-getter, guys. It's not great. I don't love it about myself. But so that bar that's always freaking moving, and it's so hard to define what success is in that moment. So I think as this by the way, I'm a baby compared to all of you because have not been in this for very long at all. This is, my first book came out in 2023. My second book just came out. Before that, I'd been querying and writing books for 10 years and getting hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of rejections. And so this is like my first foray, and it's just inundated like, drink from the fire hose kind of situation, learning as much as I possibly can. So externally, the bar of success is, it's always moving, but internally, if I can stay true to myself in that moment, because I am also always changing, but if that book that I wrote at that point in time is staying true to myself, then that to me is success, because I'm, they say every author puts like a little piece of their soul into each book, and I do think that that's really true. And so I know that my little piece of soul is out there floating around, and I'm happy with that. So
Yeah.
that's me.
In my case, my little disruptive piece of soul is
Right.
out there encouraging murder, you know.
It's so cozy
The
disruption.
9 rings are floating about. Power. Oh my God.
Love that. Well, it looks like we're at time. So thank you everyone so much for joining us today to celebrate the Bane Witch. And thank you to our amazing authors for joining me today. It was lovely speaking with all of you. Please, if you haven't read it, please go out and read The Bane Witch and all of these lovely authors' novels. They are truly amazing.
Thank you so much for moderating.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun, guys.
Congratulations,
great.
Ava.
Thank you.
Yes, congrats, Eva.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all all so much. I can't even tell you.
We love you.
We love you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.